All right, it is now 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call to order the City of Lake Elmo Planning Commission meeting for Monday, March 25th, 2024. First item is to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you much. Second item is to approve this evening's agenda, which includes approval of previous meeting minutes, 2 public hearings, as well as some communication updates.
I move to approve the agenda of March 25th, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bolig, seconded by Commissioner Raycamp to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Third item is approval of minutes from our previous meeting of March 11th, 2024. Any edits, alters, comments? Cool. Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Geffrey, seconded by Commissioner Raycamp to approve the minutes from March 11th, 2024. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Moving into the fourth item for this evening, we have 2 public hearings. The first is the Chavez Comprehensive Plan Amendment and Zoning Map Amendment. We'll hear from City Staff via Sophia first for the applicant. We'll open up for a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant for tonight's application is Joe and Joan Chavez. The property is an unaddressed parcel within Sunfish Lake. The property area is 11.2 acres. 1.21 acres of that is above the ordinary high water level. The property is currently zoned rural residential with a shoreland overlay and guided in the city's comp plan as rural area development. The property has been landlocked for many years. The property would be receiving access through the North Star Second Edition final plat. This is the first step of a 2-step process for the applicant to develop and sell the property. So there are a few requests before you tonight. The first 2 are for the comprehensive plan amendment. So they'd be looking to re-guide the parcel from rural area development to village low density residential, and then adjust the MUSA boundary, which is the city's sewer boundary, and then rezone the parcel from rural residential to village low density residential. And then I do have the bottom picture here shows that outlot that they'd be getting from the North Star development. The purple dash line was the original layout, and then the solid purple is the adjustment that the applicant and developer came to. So then I have a visual of the first request for the comprehensive plan amendment, the land use guidance. So the first change would be from green to yellow with black dots. That's re-guiding the parcel from rural area development to village low density residential. And then changing that black dash line, which is the MUSA boundary, to include this parcel. And it would be included in the current phasing plan. The second visual is for the zoning map amendment. And this would be from rural residential, that light tan color, to village low density residential, which is the yellow with black dots. So reviewing this proposal, again, comprehensive plan amendments and zoning map amendments are legislative decisions by the City Council and Planning Commission. Any change to the comprehensive plan should be based on findings and criteria that show the change would be consistent with the goals, policies, and intent of the city. The city's zoning map should be consistent with the future land use map, so if we're changing one, we should change the other to be consistent. Staff would also like to note that due to the ordinary high water level setback and bluffs of the property, there's almost no buildable area. If the project moves forward, the applicants will need variances to shoreline and bluff standards. The applicant could purchase additional property from the North Star Second Edition since it has not yet been final platted and they've revised the outlot once already. Acquisition could increase buildable area and allow them to relocate the home outside of the ordinary high water level setback and bluff setback. Generally, staff is supportive of the comp plan amendment and zoning map amendment, so the applicant can combine that existing lot with the future outlot, and then they would not have split zoning between the 2 of them when they're combined. Approval of these requests tonight would not constitute a buildable lot. So then I do have a visual from the application here. The city defines steep slopes as 18% or greater. The yellow on the map is 18%, green is 20, and then there's in between the green areas 25% or more. This application was sent out for agency review on March 15th. The city received comments from the fire department. Most of their comments would relate to if this project moves forward regarding building addressing, access, and connections. The city engineer provided comments regarding impervious surface, water connection, grading, and stormwater. They'd also like to see more detailed plans if this project moves forward. The county provided comments that they do not oppose the comprehensive plan amendment, and then kind of made a general blanket statement about MPCA regulations. And then the watershed indicated no permits would be required, but they would want to review this project as it moves forward, and the DNR did not provide any comments. Staff has 4 findings and 1 condition of approval for these 2 applications. The first finding is outlining what the comprehensive plan amendment is for, which is the reguidance and MUSA boundary adjustment. The second is outlining what the zoning map amendment is for, from rural residential to village low-density residential. The third is outlining that the request is consistent with the city's comp plan. And the fourth is that it is consistent with the surrounding area. And there is 1 recommended condition of approval, and that would be contingent on Met Council's approval of the comp plan amendment. So this application was sent out for a public hearing, was sent to surrounding property owners on March 13th and published in the local paper on March 14th. Staff received a comment response from the applicant, and then we received 1 comment in support of the requests. And with that, I have 2 recommended motions for you. The first one is the comp plan amendment. That would need to go before the zoning map amendment, and they should either both be approved or both be denied since they are contingent upon each other. I can stand for any questions, and we do have the applicant here tonight.
Thanks, Sophia. Just for clarification for what's going in front of the Met Council, is it because we're changing the MUSA that changes the comp plan that they have to approve? Or are those
The
separate?
reguidance and MUSA would
Both.
both need Met Council approval because it's within the city's comp plan.
Okay.
So right now, the lot is not buildable? The parcel is not,
It would likely need variances, and
Okay.
it also doesn't have access currently.
okay. And with the zoning change, that doesn't increase, right now, if we made it village low-density residential, is the parcel only big enough for 1?
Correct.
Okay, and either way, it's just 1, all right. And then if we do change the MUSA, who becomes responsible for the sewer and water connections? Is that the property owner then?
Correct.
Okay,
I believe North Star would be putting the stub
okay.
in some sort of agreement between the property owner and the developer, and then the actual connection would come at
Right,
the time of the
right.
building permit.
Okay, all right.
Additional questions? Thanks, Sophia. We'll go ahead and hear from the applicant. If you want to come up. As always, if you don't mind, just name and address for the
Sure.
record, please.
My name is Joe Chavez, 3505 Kelvin Avenue North, Lake Elmo. I appreciate the opportunity to come and say a few words about the proposal. I'm pleased that, the recommendations to go forward with the plan amendment and the comp plan. But I wrote some comments that I circulated in the letter last week. And I think it was important to note that what was left out of that was that this is a lot of record. And the lot was created back in 1980. And basically, we feel that in regards to, the comments about it's not a buildable lot, it's 1.21 acres above the ordinary high water mark. And that does not include the outlot that the developer is going to provide. So working with the developer initially with the outlot, it didn't give us the best access to the lot. So he was kind enough to make some accommodations and move some lines from one lot to the other lot and so forth, so we could be able to more easily access a footprint for the house, because it's only going to be a single-family home. The other thing I want to note too, in terms of the fact that comments made that it's not, there isn't enough for a buildable lot, is that there's also a handout in terms of what I submitted of an overview of the map of Sunfish Lake. Now, most of the homes on Sunfish Lake were all built on bluffs and slopes. The last house that was built on the north end was built in 1993. That house did require a variance that was granted. My house was built in 1981, and in essence, my home lot almost mirrors exactly the property that's being proposed to in this presentation. And so it's kind of like essentially that all these homes have had access and were granted, one granted variance that I'm aware of, and the other ones, as far as I know, were not granted variance and weren't required. And the homes that were built, the first one that I'm aware of was built in 1972, which is right next door to me. The other homes were built in 1990, mine was built in 1981. The house on the southern part of Sunfish Lake was started in 1986 and finished in 1988. The house next to it is an old farmhouse that was there before we built our house in 1981. And so they're basically very similar in terms of configuration, sitting on slopes and sitting on a bluff overlooking the lake. And so, I mean, that's why we decided to submit reasons in terms of, I guess, why the variances at the appropriate time would be granted, even though the language says currently that it's not buildable and that I would be required to purchase more land. In essence, in terms of requiring to purchase more land, the developer has been gracious enough to accommodate us in terms of reconfiguring the outlet for access and so forth. And I think it would probably dilute the value of his lots, and I wouldn't suspect that he would not be open, to giving up more of his property in order so we could have a lot to build on. And the contention that, it's not a buildable lot, and I'd have to buy land to have a buildable lot wouldn't make sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't need a variance to have a property that's buildable. So those were some of my comments in terms of the comments regarding not enough buildable land for one single-family dwelling. Are there any questions I can answer?
Any questions? Just for a clarification, maybe Sophia, this is directed at you. We're not saying that he would be required to buy additional lot, but that additional land purchase would make it so it's less likely to request variances at further stage, right? Okay. Thank you. Perfect. Anything else from the commissioners? Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And this is a public hearing. And again, as Sophia mentioned, there was one public comment that we received. Was that the only one that was in our packet?
Correct.
From James Gibbons, I believe. That looks like it is in support, if I read correctly.
Correct.
No objection to the property being developed, yeah. Perfect. Did we have anybody from the audience that does wish to speak on this? Just as a reminder for public hearings, there's a form at the back that we ask you to fill out if you do wish to speak. Okay, perfect. With that then, since this is a public hearing, we'll need a motion to go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
I second.
Motion by Commissioner Geffrey, seconded by Commissioner Bolig to open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. The public hearing is now open at 7:13 p.m. And then, did you have the form filled out there, if you wish to speak? Do we have one form?
I'll grab one.
Okay, thank you. And then, yeah, you're welcome to go ahead and come up to the microphone. Dennis? Yeah. So if you want to speak.
Question about
two parcels that were.
Sorry, do you mind coming up to the microphone? And then just for the record, name and
I'm
address.
Dennis Malonsky, 4138 Kindred Way, Lake Elmo. And I just had a question, you had a picture up there of two parcels, one showing with current conditions and another one with proposed conditions. And I was wondering why the dotted line goes out into the lake there on that second one.
So during a public hearing, we can't do a back and forth Q&A, but I can address it once we close the public hearing to answer that for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Right. I don't think we had anybody else for the public hearing, so we can entertain a motion to close.
I move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Bolig, seconded by Commissioner Raycamp to close the public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously and the public hearing is closed at 7:16 PM. Sophia, do you mind, oh, you're on top of it. Would you mind answering?
The black dash line is the MUSA boundary, so the property would be then included in the MUSA, so that black dash line should be outlining the property lines.
Because the property line covers out into the lake.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. All right, at this time, with the public hearing closed, it's back to the commissioners here. There are two motions that have been provided as guidance. We'll start with the top one there regarding the comp plan and change the V-LDR.
Move to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan amendment for PID 14-029-21-24-0004 from rural area development to village low density residential and amend the MUSA boundary based on the findings and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Raycamp, seconded by Commissioner Jeffrey to recommend approval. We'll start with discussion. Commissioner Raycamp.
Sure. It's going to be an island out into itself based upon the development that's going on around it, with the lake being the natural border, and so it makes sense that the comprehensive plan and the MUSA would match what it is next door, and again, the lake being the boundary.
All right, thank you. Additional comments?
There's just really no good reason not to allow it. And obviously there's construction and building and things like that going on, you know, immediately around it. So, and staff is in agreement as well, so.
Yeah, agreed, based off the facts and findings on it. And again, I think the biggest thing is understanding the idea for development on this, understanding that, you know, based off of current code and how we have things set up on it for Mr. Chavez, you know, the possible variances based off the bluff are a consideration there for development of it. But in terms of what this particular motion is calling for, the realignment makes sense and consistent with, like you said, surrounding areas. Additional comments? All right, hearing none, again, there's a motion on the table to recommend approval of the comp plan amendment for the PID and I'm not gonna read the number off, rural area development to village low density residential, and to amend the MUSA boundary based on the findings listed in the staff report. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the first motion passes unanimously. We then have the second motion on the zoning map amendment.
I move to recommend approval of zoning map amendment for PID 14.029.21.24.0004 from rural residential to village low-density residential based on the findings and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Jeffrey, second by Commissioner Bullock to recommend approval of the zoning map amendment. Additional discussion?
Just an echo of before, you know, no reason not to, and they go hand in hand with each other, so.
Agreed.
Perfect. Agreed. The staff findings, I think listed out, again, building consistency with the first, so in approval. All right, hearing no further discussion, again, the motion is to recommend approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, and this will now go to city council. Do we have a date for
May
that?
7th.
May 7th. And anybody, that concludes item 4A. Joe, or anybody else, you're welcome to leave if you want. Obviously, more than welcome to stay as well. With that, though, we will move to our second public hearing this evening. This is item 4B, the Animal Inn Pet Spa and Resorts. Again, we'll hear from city staff first, and then the applicant before opening the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant for tonight's applications are Corwin and Katie Chang. They are the owners of Animal Inn. The property is located at 8611 34th Street, just south of Stillwater Boulevard. The property is roughly 14.39 acres. It is currently zoned limited commercial and guided limited business in the city's comp plan. The property has been operating as a commercial kennel since 1970 and possibly earlier. In 2019, the prior owner pursued a comp plan amendment, or a conditional use permit amendment, and cleaned up the property for future sale, which included rezoning, lot consolidation, and then again that CUP amendment. So the requests before you tonight are twofold. The first is to amend the conditional use permit to expand the facility. The second is for variances to the limited commercial setbacks and off-street parking regulations for commercial kennels. So the applicants are proposing 3 site improvements with these applications. The first is expanding the kennel facility, which would be that top picture, adding a new animal daycare, which would be that bottom photo, and then amending the fence location, which we'll dive into on the next slide. So again, on the left side, you'll see the building areas and that fencing location. And then on the right, that shows the kennel addition and animal daycare on the property. We're reviewing the variance requests. The first is to the limited commercial setback, so structures are required to be 50 feet from the property line. The applicant is proposing 25 feet for those new additions. And then off-street parking regulations for commercial kennels requires 1 space per 6 animals and 1 space per employee on the largest shift. So that would put them at 63 stalls with their expansion. The site currently has 38 stalls, and they're proposing to keep the 38 stalls. The site currently has a conditional use permit, again, from 2019 that manages the property. They're looking to amend that conditional use permit, specifically condition 1 and 2 of the existing CUP, which regulate how many dogs and cats they can have on the site. So it would increase the capacity from 160 animals to 330. The fourth condition of the 2019 CUP was to consolidate the parcels into one. 3 of those 5 parcels were torn, so they were not able to consolidate those. So it would just be getting it on the record that those 3 parcels would maintain as is, and then a restrictive covenants would be signed that all 3 properties stay under common ownership. The 8th condition condition 8 is relocating fencing. So the current CUP requires any changes to fencing beyond maintenance, which would trigger a CUP amendment. So that is one of their requests tonight. And condition 9 would be outlining that there are now 4 primary buildings instead of 3, and the accessory buildings would remain as is. So moving on to the variance criteria findings. So we'll just go through each criteria and then break down each request within that. Practical difficulties would mean that the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. So for the setback variance, the property has constraints with the septic location, pet cemetery, and floodplain. The proposed location is the only feasible location for the addition. The practical difficulties for off-street parking, the applicant is not proposing to add any additional parking with the addition. The property has significant slopes that are not suitable for parking and adding impervious surface. Moving on to unique circumstances, which is plight of the landowner is due to unique circumstances not created by the landowner. So for setbacks, the applicant is not responsible for the current layout of the facility. Expansion is not viable in areas due to steep slopes, grades, wetlands, septic location, and the pet cemetery. And then off-street parking finding, the applicant does not utilize all of the parking currently in place due to the drop-off and pickup structure of the business. Grading of the property is not conducive to additional parking, and parking is not permitted in the fire lane. Additional parking would cause increased runoff and flooding of the structures. Moving on to the third criteria, character of locality, that the request is consistent and would not alter the essential character of the area. The setback request generally would meet the overall design intent of the area, and the use would be remaining the same with this request. And then off-street parking should not impact character, since it would be staying exactly the same. And the final criteria is adjacent properties and traffic, and this is that it would not impair adjacent properties or significantly increase traffic. The setback finding, the request should not negatively impair adjacent properties or increase congestion on a public street. The area has natural buffers from residential. The south buffer would be the railroad tracks, the north buffer would be Stillwater Boulevard. And then the off-street parking finding, the variance would not impair adjacent properties or increase congestion. The parking, again, would remain as it currently sits. So I have 12 CUP findings for you. We can dive into these in more detail if we have questions that come up, but in general, they're related to health, safety, and welfare, consistency with the comp plan, consistency with the geographic location and site area, consistent with the zoning district, permitted use in the flood zone, compatible with general vicinity, buffering and nuisance compliance, adequate city services, public cost, traffic, and environmental impacts. And this application was sent out for agency review on March 15th. We received comments back from the fire department. One of their big comments was water connection for fire suppression, so that condition has been added. They also discussed building addressing, gates, locks, and drive lanes. The city engineer provided comments regarding impervious surface, water connection, grading, and stormwater. They would want to see more detailed plans if this project moves forward. The county provided comments regarding future intersection improvements, and then the watershed and DNR did not provide comments. So then I have 15 recommended conditions of approval. This is a similar format to the last resolution that this site had. So the first one is related to number of dogs, increasing from 160 to 300. Number of cats going from 10 to 30. The third one is that the old CUP would be void and this CUP would now be the guiding document for the property. 3 is related to the Torrens and restrictive covenants. 5 and 6 are related to water connection. 7 is that general condition that all necessary permits must be obtained. And 8 is related to the septic capacity. 9 is related to building addressing. 10 is related specifically to the buildings that could do boarding. 11 is related to outdoor kenneling, and that is the same condition that was from their 2019 CUP. 12 is regarding fencing. 13 is outlining primary and accessory buildings. Again, this would go from 3 to 4 primary buildings and then would keep its 2 accessory buildings. 14 is from the 2019 resolution regarding the caretaker's suite. And 15 is also from the 2019 resolution, which is the terms defined. And then a public hearing was sent to surrounding property owners on March 13th, published in the local paper on March 15th, and staff has not received any public comments regarding this application. So I have a motion before you, and then I can stand for any questions, and we do have the applicants here.
Thanks, Sophia. Questions?
How is the parking requirement determined?
That is a good question. It's existing in code. I don't know exactly when it was adopted.
For this particular business type?
For commercial kennels, correct.
Okay, I don't know, it's just, they currently apparently don't use all the parking they had, so I was trying to understand how that came about.
Was it 1 per 6 animals or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
That's an
It
odd-
seems fitting for a smaller operation where you might only have 12 animals and you'd have 2 spots, but the larger
Right.
scale, I don't know that you'd use it as much. And the drop-off pickup nature of the business, if they are parking, they're not staying for very long.
Okay. Additional questions? Perfect. Thanks, Sophia. Yeah, and if the applicant would like to come up. And same as abbreviated name and address, please.
Hi, do you need my home address or the business?
Business.
Perfect. So I'm Katie Chang, and the business address is 8611 34th Street North, Lake Elmo. And we really appreciate you guys hearing us tonight. Sophia has worked with us a lot on this proposal and trying to get things together. First thing I'd like to address, I know the parking. I don't know if you guys received the full parking study. We actually did. But we actually went during spring break week, over a week, where we, every 15 minutes, took photos and counted the cars in the lot, employees versus clients, things like that. Even though, for example, one day we had 130 dogs there, there was the average of two people in the lot, was the high point for the day. Our staff high point was 12. So we really don't utilize a lot of that parking, particularly with how we are looking to expand the business, is really for the need of dog daycare, which didn't exist 50 years ago, right? Like, that's definitely a newer service that is being provided. So really where we want to expand is our dog daycare availability for the growing area. And that is a very much drop off and pick up business. People do not want to be late for work. If you are not quick, they are not going to be very happy with you. So that's really the big thing with the parking. Also, as Sophia did address, we really, unfortunately, just with how the buildings are set up, don't have a ton of buildable space. We do have the wetlands, 2 different wetlands on the property. They're connected by a little pathway, about a 5-acre pet cemetery, and then various septic systems we have between the buildings. So we really have very limited space. We would be able to expand. One other thing that is very important for us with this expansion is also, again, dog daycare, dogs groups playing together was not a big thing 50 years ago when our existing buildings were built. They did not build indoor play space. That is a huge problem for dog daycares in Minnesota. The very first thing we did upon purchasing the business was build it with one of the former vet building. But that area is very small, and it does really constrain what we're able to do. Also, I'd like to address the amount of dogs too. I can see where that would people be like, wow, that's a big change. Right now, where we're running into is our daycare is where, again, we want to primarily expand a lot of our services. We do want to expand our suites and some of our boarding, but daycare is really the primary driver for this type of expansion. The daycare pups, are Monday to Friday. Our primary boarding dogs are Friday to Sunday, or they might, like, over spring break, stay a week, something like that. Where we run into trouble building our daycare base is we can build our daycare up when travel times are low, but then we end up turn a lot of our clients away just because on Friday at 4 o'clock, someone is checking in and I don't know when those daycare dogs are going home. So we really have to drop our daycare amount down. So what we would like to do is be able to have a high enough number where we can safely have, our regular daycare clients not have to turn those people away, upset them not have the service available, and still maintain our boarding services that we have, if that makes sense. And I think those were kind of the biggest concerns we were kind of anticipating people having. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Okay. Questions?
Have you talked to your neighboring property owners?
Yes. The one that I feel will be the most likely, really the one up the hill, the owner they recently sold, so we haven't been able to contact them. But they did receive the public notice. They use it for storage or not really around. They rent it out to a bus depot, and then it was formerly a carpentry shop. So that is one area. The training school is on the other side, and we have a good relationship, talked to her.
Right.
Very similar names, very confusing, but they're awesome. Like I said, we've reached out to them, offered to share plans, things like that as well.
You're talking about the property that's just north, like 8603?
Yeah, so is it 86?
It's 86.
Oh,
Yeah.
what is it? 8633, yeah. So they're literally, like, the training school, you drive down, thank you. So if you look at the map, when you're driving down that long road, If you hang a left, that is that little building over there is the training school just outside of our parking line. They're called Animal in Training School. They are completely unaffiliated business. They used to, long story, friends purchased things together and then sold their pieces, essentially. But they have their own parking, their own everything. They're not really anything to do with us.
Perfect. Thank you. Additional questions? Perfect.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Much
Thank you.
appreciated. All right, this is a public hearing, so we'll need a motion to open.
Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Raycamp, seconded by Commissioner Geffrey to open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Public hearing is now open at 7:35 PM. We said we received no prior comment. And just to confirm, was there anybody else in the audience wishing to speak? Perfect. Seeing none, then, we can go ahead and make a motion to close.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Geffrey, seconded by Commissioner Raycamp to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. The public hearing is now closed at 7:36 PM. We do have a motion provided by city staff there. We can start with to open up discussion.
Move to recommend approval of the variances and conditional use permit amendment with conditions from Katie and Corwin Chang for the Animal Inn Pet Resort and Spa located at 8611 34th Street North, based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Bullock, seconded by Commissioner Geffrey to recommend approval. Let's start with discussion. Commissioner Bullock?
I am guessing, but I don't know, but I'm guessing that COVID had a lot to do with the need for expansion with more and more pets and the area growing, so I could see the need for an expansion.
Yeah, staff's looked into it, has their support. Looks like a mainly commercial area anyways. There's freeway on one side and train tracks on the other. Sounds like business is good, so I'd like to support that.
Perfect. Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. My two callouts were addressed by the applicant with the parking and the number of animals there. Understanding the variance request, given Lake Elmo has some very weird property lines, that we have to find ways to make things square peg, round hole to fit. So understanding the variance on the conditional use permit, I think it's, something I'm sure the city council will address as well. So just as a heads up, in terms of the overall expansion, in terms of numbers, appreciate kind of doing the early traffic study, if you will, parking study, because that's always a thing with added traffic coming and going under 36. We know it high volume and continuing to increase, so just something to be aware of. But overall, yeah, I'm in favor of the variance and the CUP amendments. Anything additional? All right, hearing no more. Again, the motion on the table is to recommend approval of the variance and CUP amendment with the conditions based off the findings listed in the staff report. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, and this will also go to city council
May 7th,
on May 7th.
big meeting.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That concludes item 4 for this evening. Sam, you're welcome to take off, welcome to stay. As we move on to our next item in the agenda. We have no new or finished business, so we'll move to item 6, which are the communication updates. Back to Sophia.
For sure. We have had no planning items go before city council between now and the last meeting. And then we do have 2 upcoming planning commission meetings on April 8th and April 22nd. I did send an email regarding planning commission training. It looks like that'll probably be in a May meeting, maybe the first meeting in May.
We have planned items for both April meetings already?
We do.
Okay. Perfect. Easy enough. Any additional questions or clarification from Sophia?
If you're gonna be missing a meeting, let me know.
Yes. Perfect. All right, with that, we have gotten to the end of our agenda, so we'll be able to adjourn for the evening. Again, as always, thanks for citizens for coming out, sticking around for this evening, commission members coming out, and city staff. Always appreciate the work that goes into getting all this prepped and taken care of. With that, we'll go ahead and close the meeting at 7:40 PM. And I hope everybody has a good night.